The rock crumbled under David Wright's boots as he climbed down into the narrow canyon. His geological scanner beeped steadily, indicating high concentrations of rare minerals in the cliff walls around him. The sun beat down on Tessernine's red soil, making everything shimmer in the afternoon heat. David had told his team he was checking the western ridge. That was a lie. The western ridge held nothing interesting. This canyon, however, showed readings that made no sense. Crystal formations that shouldn't exist on a planet this young. He had to see them himself. The canyon walls rose higher as he descended. Shadows grew longer. His scanner led him deeper, past twisted rock formations and dried stream beds. Then he heard a sound like nothing he had encountered before. Low and rumbling, but with a desperate edge that made his chest tighten. Something was in pain. David froze. His training screamed at him to stop, to call for backup, to follow protocol. But that sound came again, weaker this time. Whatever made it was suffering, he moved toward the noise, placing each foot carefully on the loose stones. The sound came from a collapsed section of cliff where massive crystal formations had broken free. Broken shards jutted from the rubble like shattered glass. And trapped beneath them, barely visible in the shadows, was something that made David's breath catch Draken, a young one, maybe equivalent to a human teenager. Its scaled body was wedged between two massive crystal slabs. One wing bent at an unnatural angle. Dark blood stained the rocks around it, but David's hand moved to his comm device automatically. Every regulation he had ever learned said to back away. Report it. Let the professionals handle it. Draken were classified as extreme threats. Apex predators with intelligence that couldn't be measured. Every species in the galaxy gave them wide berth. But looking at the trapped creature, David saw something else. He saw the shallow breathing, the dry blood that said it had been here for days. The way its eyes tracked him with obvious fear and pain, he saw a living being that would die without help. David put his comm away and approached slowly. The Draken hissed, a weak sound that should have been terrifying. Its good wing flared in warning, barely able to extend in the confined space. Easy, David said softly. I'm not going to hurt you. The creature obviously didn't understand his words, but something in his tone made it pause. David knelt just outside striking range and studied the situation. The crystal slabs were massive. Trying to move them could cause a complete collapse. But there was a gap, a space where smaller debris could be cleared. He started with the smallest rocks, talking the entire time. Nonsense mostly, explaining what he was doing, telling the Draken about his day, his work, the sandwich he had eaten for lunch. His voice seemed to calm the creature. Its breathing slowed from panicked to merely pained. Hours passed. David's hands bled from cuts as he moved sharp crystal fragments. The Draken watched every movement. Occasionally, it made small sounds, less aggressive now, almost conversational. When David offered it water from his canteen, carefully pouring it into a depression in the rock, the creature drank desperately. Its long tongue lapped at the water with pathetic gratitude. David felt his throat tighten at the sight. You've been here a while, haven't you? He murmured. The Draken's eyes met his. In that moment, David saw intelligence. Real, deep intelligence. Not the mindless predator the reports described. This was a person. Different, yes. Scaled and winged and utterly alien. But a person nonetheless. He worked faster. His scanner warned that the crystal formation was unstable. Any wrong move could bring tons of rock down on both of them. David didn't care. He couldn't leave. Wouldn't leave as the sun began to set, painting the canyon walls orange and purple. David finally cleared enough space. The opening was just wide enough. He braced his shoulder against one of the slabs, using his legs to push it slightly to the side. Now, he grunted. Move now. The Draken understood. It pulled with its good wing, dragged with its claws, and squeezed through the gap. David heard something scrape, heard the creature cry out, but it made it through. It collapsed on the canyon floor just as David let the slab fall back. The sound of settling rock echoed through the canyon. David fell to his knees, breathing hard. He was covered in dust and blood. His muscles screamed. But the Draken was free. The creature lay motionless except for its labored breathing. Now that David could see it fully, the extent of its injuries became clear. The broken wing, deep cuts along its flanks, dehydration and exhaustion written in every line of its body. David pulled his emergency medical kit from his pack. Standard issue for human injuries, but he hoped the basics would work. He cleaned the wounds as gently as possible, applied antibacterial gel, wrapped the worst cuts with sterile bandages. The Draken let him work. Its eyes never left his face. Once, when David had to manipulate the broken wing to splint it properly, the creature made a sound of agony. David paused, hands shaking. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry. But this will help. I promise." He finished the splint, gave the Draken more water, set up his emergency shelter, and helped the creature crawl into its shade. Then he sat back and truly looked at what he had done. He had saved a Draken, touched one, treated its wounds. Everything about this violated every safety protocol in existence. His career was probably over. He might face criminal charges. David found he didn't care. The Draken made a soft sound. Not aggressive, almost like a purr. It shifted slightly, moving closer to him. Its head, easily the size of David's torso, rested near his leg. Those intelligent eyes blinked slowly. "You're welcome," David said. His calm buzzed. Rachel's voice crackled through. "David, where are you? Your tracker shows you way off course." David looked at the Draken, at this living being he had saved, at the trust it was showing him. "Just checking some mineral deposits," he lied. "I'll be back tomorrow." He disconnected before Rachel could argue. Tomorrow he would face the consequences. Tonight, he would make sure this creature survived. David woke to find Cirrus curled near his sleeping area, her breathing slow and even. The injuries looked better already. Whatever medicine the Draken used worked faster than human treatments. He sat up carefully, not wanting to disturb her. The young Draken appeared in the entrance. Not quite full-grown, with bright green scales that shimmered in the crystal light. It chirped at David, beckoning with one wing. "Follow." The corridors were busy with morning activity. Draken of all sizes moved through the area with purpose. Younglings chased each other, their parents keeping watchful eyes on them. Adults carried things in their claws or mouths, organized and deliberate. This wasn't a nest. It was a functioning society. David's guide brought him to a large central chamber. The three elders from yesterday waited there, along with a dozen other important-looking Draken. Cirrus's mother stood among them. She nodded at David's arrival. The eldest Draken, the one with the marked eyes, stepped forward. It placed a clawed hand on David's shoulder, gentle despite its size. Then it began a demonstration, images on the stone walls. Not written language, but carved pictures. David recognized the style from ancient human cave paintings. But these showed Draken history. He saw their evolution from smaller creatures to the magnificent beings they were now. Saw them building the first Ares, fighting off predators, developing tools with their claws. Then he saw the first contact with other species. Ships landing on Draken worlds. The Draken approaching peacefully. And then the images turned dark. Weapons firing. Draken falling. Their young being taken. Their Ares burned. David's throat tightened. "They shot first," he whispered. "You tried to make contact, and they attacked you." The elder made an affirming sound. It showed more images. Draken retreating to remote worlds. Becoming territorial, not from aggression, but from learned wariness. Building their Ares in places others wouldn't follow. Living in isolation because contact always meant violence. "No one ever tried to talk to you," David said. "They just saw predators and assumed the worst." The elder touched David's forehead with its own. A gesture he was learning meant shared understanding. Cirrus had told them somehow. Told them that this human was different. That he helped without wanting anything in return. That he stayed when others would have run. Cirrus entered the chamber, moving better now despite the splint. She came to David's side and made sounds at the elders. They listened. Then one gestured for David to follow again. They brought him to another chamber, this one filled with younger Draken. Teaching space, David realized. The young ones are practicing flight techniques, their wings still small. Others worked with stones, carving patterns with their claws. Art and engineering combined. The elder made a clear gesture. Show them about humans. David pulled out his datapad. The young Draken crowded around, fascinated by the device. He showed them videos of Earth, oceans and forests and cities. The young ones made excited sounds, pointing with their claws at things that interested them, that he showed them humans doing everyday things. Playing sports, making music, building homes. The Draken watched with intense focus. One small one tried to mimic a human walking on two legs and fell over, causing laughter from its peers. The sound of Draken laughter was surprisingly musical. Cirrus began translating more actively. Her sounds were still difficult for David to reproduce, but she was learning human words fast. She pointed at things and said their names in accented but recognizable English. Sky, rock, family, friend. Other young Draken tried to copy her. The chamber filled with fractured English as they practiced. David found himself teaching an alien language class, feeling absurdly like a kindergarten teacher. That afternoon, Rachel's message came through with frightening news. David read it 3 times to make sure he understood. Corporate is sending an armed expedition. They're classifying you as compromised. They plan to take the Draken territory by force, claiming it's uninhabited by sentient life. They'll be there in 4 days. David, they have weapons that can level the entire area. His hands shook as he forwarded the message to his personal log. He had to tell the council, had to make them understand. The elders listened gravely as David explained, using every communication method he had developed. Drawings, gestures, simple words Cirrus could translate. The threat was clear enough. Armed ships, powerful weapons, humans coming to take their home. The response was immediate. Draken warriors began mobilizing. David saw them practicing aerial maneuvers, organizing defensive positions around the area. Their movements were coordinated and strategic. They had fought before and knew how, but David also knew how outmatched they would be. Draken were tough and fierce, but corporate warships had firepower designed to crack open asteroids. This wouldn't be a fight. It would be a slaughter. He worked through the night on a different plan. His datapad filled with documentation. Pictures of the carved histories, videos of Draken teaching their young, audio recordings of their complex language, evidence of tool use, art, social structures, medical knowledge. Everything that proved beyond doubt that Draken were fully sentient beings with advanced civilization. Galactic law was clear. You couldn't claim territory inhabited by sentient species. If David could get this evidence to the right authorities before the corporate ships arrived, they would have to stop. Rachel helped from her end. She had already copied his preliminary reports to several xenological research institutes. But official channels moved slowly. They needed something faster, something that couldn't be ignored or buried. I can route your data through emergency broadcast protocols, Rachel sent. But it has to be undeniable. Show them everything. David looked at Cirrus, who was helping him organize files. At the young Draken who had learned to say hello in English. At the elders who had welcomed him despite centuries of betrayal by other species. I need volunteers, he told Cirrus. Draken who will let me record them. Show the galaxy who you really are. Cirrus understood. She spoke to her family, to the council, to the other young Draken. Within hours, David had more volunteers than he could film. They wanted the galaxy to see them, to understand, to finally recognize what had always been true. Draken weren't monsters. They were people, and people deserved to be heard. The massive Draken touched its forehead to David's chest, gently, despite the fact that a single swipe of its claws could end him. The pressure was firm but controlled, deliberate. Then the entire pack erupted in sound. Not roars of aggression, something else entirely. Complex vocalizations that overlapped and harmonized. Several of the smaller Draken approached, wanting to get closer to David. He stood very still as they sniffed him, examined the medical supplies, investigated the shelter he had built. One of them, barely larger than Cirrus, pressed its head against David's hand. He fought every instinct and touched it gently. The scales were warm and surprisingly smooth. The young Draken made a pleased sound that David's calm was screaming. Rachel's voice mixed with others. His supervisor, company officials, all demanding he respond. He pulled it out slowly, careful not to startle the Draken around him. "I'm fine," he said simply. "More than fine. David, what's happening?" The drone footage shows them surrounding you. They're not attacking. "Rachel, I don't think they ever attacked anyone without cause. I think we've been wrong about them." The large Draken made a commanding sound. The pack quieted. It looked at David, then at Cirrus, then made a series of gestures with its wings and head. The meaning was clear even without shared language. "Come with us." David looked back at his camp, at the equipment he had brought, at the comm still squawking with panicked voices. Then at Cirrus, who was watching him with those intelligent eyes. "They want me to go with them," David said into the comm. "Absolutely not. David, you can't. No human has ever entered Draken territory. We have no idea what they'll do to you. They saved their young one. I helped her. They understand that. You can't know that." David watched as two Draken carefully helped Cirrus to her feet. They supported her weight, gentle with her injuries. "Family taking care of family." "Yes," David said. "I can." He disconnected the comm and approached the large Draken. It lowered itself, making a clear invitation. David had ridden horses as a child. This couldn't be that different. It was completely different. The Draken's shoulders were broad and scaled. David found a grip between two ridges and pulled himself up. The creature didn't seem bothered by his weight. When it stood to full height, David's stomach dropped. The ground was much farther away than he had expected. The pack formed up around them. The large Draken, who David guessed was Cirrus's mother, led the way. With a powerful leap, she launched into the air. David's scream was undignified and immediate. The world dropped away as massive wings beat the air. Wind rushed past him, cold and fierce. He pressed himself flat against the Draken's back and held on with everything he had. But after the initial terror passed, something else took over. Wonder. The canyon fell away below them. Tessera, 9 stretched out in all directions. Red rock and crystal formations glittering in the sunlight. The pack flew in formation, moving with perfect coordination. 2 Draken carried Cirrus between them, supporting her so she didn't have to use her injured wing. They flew for over an hour. David's hands cramped from gripping so hard, but he couldn't look away from the landscape passing beneath them. They crossed mountain ranges he hadn't known existed, rivers that carved impossible patterns through the stone. And finally, the arid it took David several moments to understand what he was seeing. The cliff face looked natural at first, but then he saw the openings. Hundreds of them, carved into the rock with mathematical precision. Ledges and platforms at multiple levels. Draken moving between them with purpose. It was a city, built vertically into the mountain itself. They landed on a broad platform halfway up the cliff. Dozens of Draken were already there, watching the pack's return. When they saw David, the reaction was immediate. Shock, curiosity, some aggressive posturing from the larger males. Cirrus's mother made a commanding sound. The aggression stopped. She gestured for David to dismount. He did so on shaking legs, nearly falling. A young Draken caught him, steadied him, then quickly backed away as if surprised by its own action. The large Draken led David into the mountain. The passages inside were enormous, carved smooth by generations of Draken claws. Bioluminescent crystals provided light, casting everything in soft blue-green. The walls showed markings, deliberate patterns that might have been writing or art or both. They brought him to a chamber where Cirrus was already being tended by several Draken. They worked on her injuries with obvious medical knowledge, replacing David's crude bandages with something that looked organic and smelled like medicine. Cirrus saw him and made a happy sound. David was given space near Cirrus's family area. A chamber carved into the rock with sleeping platforms and what might have been furniture adapted for Draken physiology. He sat on a ledge and pulled out his data pad, documenting everything he could point. 3 Draken entered. Older ones, their scales graying at the edges. They regarded David with clear intelligence. One of them had markings around its eyes that reminded him of reading glasses. They began asking questions. Not in words David understood, but through gesture and vocalization, and pulled up images on his datapad to help. Why did he help Cirrus? Where did he come from? What were humans? What did they want? David answered as best he could. Showed them pictures of Earth, of human cities, explained through simple words and lots of pointing about the mining company, about his job studying rocks, about finding Cirrus by accident. One elder brought stone tablets covered in marks. The Draken writing system. David recorded everything, his mind already working on translation possibilities. Language was patterns. Patterns could be decoded. Cirrus joined the conversation when she could, making sounds that seemed to translate David's gestures. The hours passed. Food was brought, raw meat that David politely declined, and dried fruit that he accepted gratefully. The Draken watched him eat with fascination. As night fell, David sent one message to Rachel. I'm safe. They're not what we thought. I'm going to prove it. Then he settled in to sleep surrounded by aliens, by people, by a civilization that the galaxy had dismissed as monsters. Tomorrow he would begin the real work. Tonight, he let himself feel the significance of where he was and what this could mean. David woke to the feeling of being watched. Dawnlight filtered through the emergency shelter's thin fabric, casting everything in orange and gold. The Draken lay exactly where it had been, but its eyes were open and alert, studying him. Morning, David said, sitting up slowly. His body ached from yesterday's work. How are you feeling? The creature made a sound, not threatening, almost questioning. David took that as progress. He checked the water supply. Not enough for both of them for long. His rations would last maybe 3 days if he was careful. The Draken probably needed more food than he could provide, but its injuries needed time to heal before it could hunt or fly. David pulled out his datapad and did what he should have done before getting involved. He researched Draken. The official files were mostly warnings. Dangerous, aggressive, territorial. Avoid all contact, but buried in the academic databases, he found older studies, observations from a distance. One researcher had spent years watching a Draken colony. The notes described complex social behaviors, family groups, teaching their young, mourning their dead. You're pack animals, David said, looking at the Draken. Aren't you? The creature tilted its head. David continued reading. Draken communicated through a combination of vocalizations and body language. Their vocal range extended far beyond what humans could hear. No successful translation attempts existed because no one had ever tried peaceful contact. David spent the morning caring for his patient. He changed bandages, shared his water carefully. The Draken accepted his help now without fear. When he worked on the splinted wing, it held still despite obvious pain. You understand I'm trying to help, David murmured. That's something. He started talking to the creature constantly, named objects as he used them. Water, food, rock, sky. The Draken watched his mouth form the words. Occasionally, it made sounds back, trying to mimic the patterns, if not the exact phonemes done on the second day. The creature tried to say his name. It came out mangled, more like David, with extra syllables and a rumbling undertone. But David's eyes went wide. Yes, David. That's me. David. He pointed to himself. The Draken tried again, closer this time. Then it made a different sound and touched its own chest with one clawed foot. Your name? David asked. He tried to repeat the sound. Failed completely. The creature made what might have been a laugh. It tried again, slower. David attempted it multiple times until he got something close enough that the Draken nodded, or made the Draken equivalent of a nod. Cirrus, David said, simplifying it to sounds he could manage. I'll call you Cirrus. Is that okay? Cirrus made an approving rumble. That afternoon, David's comm exploded with incoming messages. He had missed 2 check-ins. Rachel was threatening to send a search team. David stared at the device, then at Cirrus. She was stronger now, but nowhere near ready to move far. Her wings still hung uselessly even with the splint that he typed a message. Found a stability issue in the canyon system. Doing detailed safety analysis. Need a few more days. Rachel's response came fast. Your tracker shows you haven't moved in 2 days. What's really going on? Before David could reply, His long-range scanner began beeping urgently. He pulled it out and felt his blood go cold. Multiple large signatures approaching from the north. Flying. Fast. Draken. A lot of them. David looked at Cirrus. She had gone rigid, her head raised, listening to something he couldn't hear. Then she opened her mouth and sang. The sound was incredible. It resonated in David's chest, made his bones vibrate. Part cry, part call, part something entirely beyond human understanding. Cirrus sang for nearly a minute before falling silent, exhausted. You called them, David breathed. Your family, your pack. His calm came alive. Rachel's voice was panicked. David, get out of there now. We're reading multiple Draken converging on your position. Whatever you're doing, stop and run. David looked at Cirrus. She met his eyes and made a soft sound. Not afraid. Reassuring. Somehow. No, David said into the calm. What do you mean, no? David, there are 40+ Draken incoming. You have maybe 10 minutes. Move. I'm not leaving her. Silence on the other end. Then Rachel's voice came back, very quiet. I found an injured Draken. She was dying. I helped her. She's been calling her pack. David watched the sky. He could see them now, distant specks growing larger. Rachel, I don't think they're coming to attack. You don't think? David, no one knows what Draken think. No one has ever survived close contact. I have. For 2 days. The sky filled with wings. Massive shapes descending in a controlled formation. David stood slowly, positioning himself between the approaching pack and Cirrus. Not to protect her from them, but to show them he wasn't a threat. The largest Draken landed first, sending dust billowing across the canyon floor. It was easily 3 times Cirrus's size, with scales that gleamed deep blue-black. Scars crossed its body, marks of old battles. Its eyes fixed on David with an intensity that would have sent any sensible person running. David held his ground. More Draken landed. They surrounded him and Cirrus in a loose circle. David's heart hammered, but he kept his breathing steady. Showed no aggression. Made himself small and non-threatening. The large Draken approached Cirrus. It made sounds David had never heard before, complex and layered. Cirrus responded, her voice weak but insistent. She gestured with her good wing toward David, toward the bandages, the water containers, the shelter. The large Draken turned its full attention to David. Step closer, close enough that David could feel the heat radiating from its body. Smell the strange, metallic scent of its scales. See his reflection in its enormous eyes. David didn't run, didn't reach for a weapon, didn't make any sudden moves. He simply stood there and met the creature's gaze. The Draken made sound. Every member of the pack went silent. Then it lowered its massive head until it was level with David's. Studying him, judging him, David slowly raised his hands, palms up. I helped her, he said quietly. That's all I did. David's datapad was nearly full. 3 days of constant recording had captured everything. Draken children learning to write their language. Adults debating philosophical concepts that Cirrus struggled to translate, but clearly showed deep abstract thinking. A birth ceremony where the entire area celebrated new life with songs that made the crystal walls resonate. Medical procedures that used both technology and biological compounds in ways human doctors would find fascinating. The elders had opened their entire history to him. Ancient tablets dating back thousands of years. Star charts showing Draken had been spacefaring longer than humans. Mathematical proofs carved into stone that solved problems human scientists still debated. But time was running out. The corporate fleet would arrive tomorrow. That Rachel's latest message was grim. David, I routed everything to the Galactic Assembly. They acknowledged receipt, but formal review takes weeks. The fleet commander has orders to secure the territory regardless. He's classified you as a hostage. Says they'll extract you by force if needed. David sat in the council chamber with the elders and Cirrus's mother, who he had learned was named Taura. Through Cirrus's improving translation, they understood the situation perfectly. Tomorrow, ships would come. Ships would demand David be released. When the Draken refused, the ships would fire. Taura spoke at length. Cirrus translated in broken sentences. Mother says our warriors are ready. We protect our home. Always have. We will not hide or run. You'll die, David said bluntly. Their weapons will tear this mountain apart. All of you, the younglings, everyone. Taura met his eyes. Her response needed no translation. Better to die fighting than to abandon their home. This was Draken nature. They didn't flee. David looked at his datapad, at the evidence he had gathered. It proved everything. But proof didn't matter if the people making decisions never saw it or chose to ignore it until it was too late. Then an idea struck him. Dangerous. Probably stupid. But it might work. I need to be visible when they arrive, David said. They think I'm a hostage. Let them think that. Let them come close. Then I broadcast everything directly to their ships, bypassing the fleet commander. Every soldier, every crew member will see the truth at once. The elders conferred. Taura made a sound that David was learning meant deep consideration. Cirrus looked worried. Is dangerous, she said in careful English. They might shoot first. They might. But if we just fight, everyone dies for certain. This way, maybe we can reach the soldiers before the commanders give orders they can't take back. Hours of debate followed. The elders examined David's plan from every angle. Some thought it too risky. Others argued they had nothing to lose. Finally, Taura made the decision. They would try David's way, but warriors would be ready if it failed. That night, David couldn't sleep. He sat on the platform outside his chamber, looking at the stars. Cirrus joined him, her wing healing well enough now that she could glide short distances. Why you help me? She asked. Her English improved daily. In cave. You not know me. I could hurt you. You were in pain, David said simply. That was enough. Cirrus was quiet for a moment. Other species not think this way. They see Draken, they think danger. They think monster. Only you see me. I saw someone who needed help. The rest didn't matter. This is human way. David considered. It should be. It isn't always. But it should be. Cirrus leaned against him, careful of her size. You are pack now. Taura says. You save her daughter. You are family. We protect family. David felt his throat tighten. I protect family too. Morning came too fast. The Draken took positions throughout the area. Warriors on the high platforms. Young ones deep inside the mountain with protectors. The elders stood with David and Taura on the main landing platform. David activated his broadcast equipment. Everything was ready. He just needed the ships close enough. They appeared as dots in the sky. 3 corporate warships, bristling with weapons. They descended in formation, clearly designed to intimidate. David saw turrets tracking, targeting systems active. One command, and the area would be rubble. The lead ship hailed on all frequencies. This is Commander Phillips of the Terran Mining Consortium. We are here to extract David Wright and establish territorial claim. All hostile forces stand down immediately. David took a deep breath and opened his own channel. Commander Phillips, this is David Wright. I'm not hostage. I'm here by choice. And you need to see something before you do anything else. Right? Step away from the creatures. We will cover your extraction. They're not creatures, Commander. They're people. And I can prove it. Before Phillips could respond, David activated the broadcast. His compiled documentation flooded into the ship's communication systems. Every screen, every datapad, every display suddenly showed Draken children learning. Draken artists creating. Draken families caring for each other. The ancient histories. The evidence of thousands of years of civilization. David spoke over the images. These are the Draken. They've lived here for longer than humans have had spaceflight. They have language, culture, history, art, and science. They approached other species peacefully centuries ago and were attacked for it. They became isolated because every time they tried to make contact, they were shot at. I'm the first person who ever tried to help instead of hurt. And because of that, they've shown me their entire world. He switched to footage of the council meetings. This is their government debating how to respond to your arrival. This is them choosing diplomacy over war, even though they have every reason to distrust outsiders. Then he showed the younglings. These are their children, learning, playing, growing. Just like human children, the ships held position. David could imagine the chaos on board as crew members watched. As they saw what he saw, as they understood, Commander Phillips, David said quietly, "You can fire on them. Your weapons can destroy this area in minutes. But you'll be murdering thousands of sentient beings. You'll be committing genocide. And every person on your ships will know it, because they can see the truth right now." The silence stretched. David held his breath. Taura stood beside him, ready to call her warriors to battle. The future of two species hung in the balance. Commander Phillips's voice came back different. Shaken. "Stand by." Minutes passed like hours. David watched the warships, saw their weapons still active. One trigger pull. That's all it would take. Then a new voice on the channel. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the TMC Vigilant. Commander Phillips has been relieved. I'm assuming fleet command." A pause. "Mr. Wright, we've received emergency orders from Galactic Assembly. All offensive operations are suspended pending investigation." David's legs nearly gave out. Beside him, Taura made a questioning sound. He managed to translate. "They're standing down. No attack." More ships appeared. Smaller ones with Galactic Assembly markings. Peacekeepers. Official observers. Within an hour, the corporate fleet was ordered to withdraw completely. The commander who had been ready to fire was taken into custody. David's broadcast had reached beyond the fleet. Rachel had simultaneously released it to every news outlet, every research institution, and every government office she could access. The galaxy was watching. The truth about the Draken was spreading faster than any corporation could suppress it. The Assembly observers requested permission to land. David translated for the elders. After brief discussion, Taura agreed. Two observers came down, moving carefully, clearly nervous about being surrounded by Draken. What they found exceeded every expectation. David gave them full access. They examined the carved histories, studied the language tablets, watched younglings in school, interviewed elders through Sirius's translation. Every hour, they sent reports back that rewrote decades of xenological assumptions. One observer, an older woman named Dr. Santos, sat with David on the platform. "Do you understand what you've done? First peaceful contact with Draken in recorded history. Proof of advanced civilization. You've changed everything." "I just helped someone who was hurt," David said. "The Draken did the rest. They chose to trust me, to open their world. After centuries of being shot at, they chose peace. That says something profound about them." Dr. Santos looked at the young Draken playing nearby. "And about you? Anyone else would have followed protocol and left that injured Draken to die." Over the following weeks, everything changed. The Galactic Assembly formally recognized the Draken as a sentient species with full rights. Their worlds were declared protected territories. The Terra Mining Consortium faced massive fines and criminal charges for attempted genocide. More importantly, other Draken colonies heard what happened, heard that one human had helped, that peace was possible. Slowly, carefully, they began opening contact. Ambassadors arrived at the area, Draken from 3 different worlds, all wanting to meet the human who had changed everything. David became the official liaison. He wasn't trained for it, had no diplomatic experience, but he had something more valuable: trust. The Draken trusted him because he had proven himself when it mattered most. And humans trusted him because the documentation he provided was undeniable. Cirrus worked beside him, her wing fully healed now. Her English was fluent, and she was learning other human languages rapidly. Together, they developed the first true Draken-human translation system. Not just words, but concepts, ways to bridge the gap between 2 very different ways of thinking. The young Draken who had laughed at human walking became obsessed with human culture. She learned to cook human food, though her versions were interesting interpretations. Others studied human music, human art, human engineering. In return, human researchers came to learn from the Draken. Their mathematics, their medicine, their understanding of flight and aerodynamics. Rachel arrived 3 months after the initial contact. She landed on the platform where David had first stood, surrounded by warriors. Now young Draken ran up to greet visitors, excited to practice their English. "You look different," she told David. "Happy." "I am." David gestured to the area, bustling with activity. Draken and humans working side by side. This is what it should have been all along. Understanding instead of fear. The Assembly wants to hire you permanently. Official ambassador to the Draken species. Full diplomatic status. David smiled. I'm a geologist, Rachel. I study rocks. You're whatever the galaxy needs you to be. She pulled out a data chip. Job offers. 20 different institutions want you. Universities, governments, research facilities. You can name your price. David looked at Cirrus, who was teaching a human child the basics of Draken writing. At Taura, who had just returned from a successful hunting trip with mixed Draken-human teams. At the younglings who knew no fear of humans because they grew up with David's presence. I'm staying here, he said. There's still so much to learn. So much to build. I can't leave now. Rachel wasn't surprised. They said you'd say that, so they'll bring the work to you. The Eyrie is being designated as the official center for Draken-human cultural exchange. Research grants, education programs, trade agreements. She paused. David, you're going to help create an entire new framework for how species interact. Taura approached with a small group of elders. Through Cirrus, they had a proposal. They wanted to formalize David's place in the pack. A ceremony that would make him legally recognized as Draken family under their law. The ceremony happened at sunset. David stood in the central chamber while the entire Eyrie gathered. Taura placed a carved stone around his neck. The markings were his name in Draken script, and below it, new symbols Cirrus translated. Bridgewalker, one who connects separated paths, who builds understanding where there was only distance. The Drakens sang, hundreds of voices in harmony that made the crystals glow brighter. David felt tears on his face and didn't bother hiding them. That night, sitting with Cirrus under the stars, David thought about the moment in the canyon. The choice to help or walk away. Everything that came after stemmed from that single decision. Do you regret it? Cirrus asked. Your old life is gone. You can never go back to just being a geologist. David watched a group of young Draken and human children playing together, their laughter mixing in the evening air. Saw the research stations being built, the ships coming and going with peaceful intent, the future being written in real time. No, he said, I wouldn't change anything. Cirrus leaned against him, family in every sense that mattered. Good, because Pack is forever. Below them, the Eyrie glowed with lights both human and Draken. Two species learning to live together, building something new. And at the center of it all was a simple truth that David had known from the beginning. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is help someone in pain. Everything else follows from that choice.